Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 2 of Not Overthinking. Massive thank you before we get started to everyone who downloaded and listened to episode 1. It was pretty awesome that there were so many of you who seemed to enjoy that episode of this new fledgling podcast that we have started.
Yeah, and thank you so much to everyone who sent in responses. It's great to hear that this idea resonates with you. Great to hear your personal experiences about trying to be correct in everyday life. We're going to put some of those responses in the show notes, so check them out at notoverthinking.com.
This episode is going to be about answering the question of why we find it so hard to put ourselves out there. Hope you enjoy the show. My name is Ali, I'm a doctor and YouTuber.
I'm Taimur, I'm a data scientist and writer.
And you're listening to Not Overthinking,
the weekly podcast where we think about happiness, creativity, and the human condition.
I have a question for today's episode.
All right, let's hear it.
Which comes under creativity and the human condition. Actually, it sort of relates to all three. And that is sort of a bit meta because we are starting this podcast.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't think you've had much experience with putting yourself out there sort of in terms of video. You've done like writing and things.
Yeah, nothing super personal really. My writing is also very impersonal for the most part.
It's more like, Malcolm Gladwell's masterclass notes.
Or like, here is how Netflix makes money kind of thing. Yeah.
So how do you feel about this idea that you're now officially putting yourself out there? Because I imagine a lot of people listening might be considering putting themselves out there in one domain or another, but might be feeling a bit hesitant about it.
I think this is a real issue, actually. I think this is one of the things that stops people in society doing so many things. So a few years ago, I would have definitely objected to it. A few years ago, I would have thought, oh man, who is this person that thinks they're so interesting that they should have their face on YouTube videos, and like they think they're so interesting that they can vlog their life. Like what a pompous twit,
Pompous twit. Yes, you would have said that a few years ago.
This is outrageous. Like, why? This is not okay. But I think now I have some thoughts on this, and actually, now I'm fine with it.
Okay, why are you now fine with it? What's changed between a few years and now to make you fine with this idea of putting yourself out there and having the audacity to record a podcast where you're overthinking about life?
Okay, so I think there's two things. I think the first thing is that I think these things do actually add value in general to like society and other people's lives. And I think if you're thinking of it from that point of view, that it's like, okay, I'm doing this thing because it's like fun for me and maybe it'll add value to someone else's life. I think that's great. And pretty much the only way to add value to other people's lives is to share things about yourself with them or things that you've done with them. And so like, if everyone has this whole kind of uptight attitude of how dare I share this thing about myself, or how dare I put myself out there, then pretty much nothing will ever get done. And I think it's interesting that people are happy to, people are generally happy to share themselves in certain ways. For example, through like work and things. If you have a job in which it requires you to do something vaguely in the public eye, like if you're a news reporter or something, no one would look at a news reporter and think, what a pompous twit. Or like if you have like a politics column in The Guardian or something, no one would look at that and think, what a twat. Why does he think anyone would care about his opinion?
No, exactly. I think in the realm of writing and in the realm of work, it's a lot easier to do it. I've got a lot of friends who would be more than happy to write a little piece about, for example, how to get into medical school, but would be a lot more hesitant to talk about that on video. But even that how to get into medical school thing where they're kind of offering their advice, people would generally be okay with that. It's when you start getting more personal that the real problems start to arise. And this podcast is sort of a lot more personal than any. So, for example, you've written about how Netflix makes money. I can't imagine that took much of a leap of internal fortitude that required you to write that.
Not really. I think like putting the first bit of thing out there on the internet. I think writing is quite an intimate thing. Like, fine, you're not showing your face or anything, but I do feel kind of exposed when someone reads my writing. And I think the first time I did anything like that, I did feel kind of awkward about it. I was like,
when was the first time? Was that like your Medium post about how to code or something? Or was it before then?
Yeah, that was probably actually back then. I think this is an interesting challenge. I think a few years ago, back when I was in school, when I look back on like towards the end of school, I didn't care at all. I made ridiculous YouTube videos with myself in them and just posted them on Facebook for like my whole year to see. I'm surprised at how little I cared. But then I think when I started university, I started to care more. And then my sort of like, I wonder how I'm coming across kind of radar started getting quite sensitive.
Wait, so you're saying that towards the end of secondary school,
towards the end of secondary, I did not care at all.
Really?
I'm surprised at how little I care.
I swear I've never seen a YouTube video that has actually you in it.
There is one in which I'm holding it's completely bizarre. I'm holding a garden hose that ends up shooting lightning. It's like...
Oh yeah, we'll link to it in the show notes if you want to check that out.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And then I made some Lego gun video and just put it out there. It wasn't super personal. But I think back then I didn't care that much. But I think sort of around the start of university, I started becoming concerned about how I might be coming across.
Okay. So hang on. So you're saying there were 2 points to this sort of why you've changed your mind on this stance over the last few years. Number one being you now accept that you can add value.
Yeah.
What was the second?
So I think the second one has just come from a lot of thinking over the past. This is quite a recent thing I've been thinking about over the past few months. I think it's that like the main objection people have is that if you're putting yourself out there, for example, the people who play piano at St. Pancras Station. Now I read some someone wrote some like opinion piece for some newspaper saying how like people who play public pianos at train stations are like pompous twits, essentially.
Oh yeah, this was an article in The Onion.
Yeah. Yeah.
A man playing piano does not realize he is a twat.
Yeah. And I think like I'm sure like the reason they wrote that sort of satire piece was because this is a sentiment that presumably some people have. And I think the sentiment actually comes from a problematic place. I think the sentiment comes from a place of valuing human beings according to external things, like how good they are at certain things. And so if in your head, your model of like people is this person is more valuable because he's like good at this thing, or this person's more valuable because she's good at this thing, then if you see someone exhibiting the fact that they're good at something, you think they're trying to signal value. They're trying to signal that, oh, I'm good at piano, look at me. And so if your reaction when someone is playing the piano at St. Pancras is, oh, look at this guy, he thinks he's so good, that actually reveals a problematic worldview in yourself that you actually sort of ascribe value to human beings in that way. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So you're saying that when I see someone playing the piano and my first response is, wow, what a show off, as opposed to, oh, this music is nice. And I'm thinking that that's his primary intention behind sitting there and playing the piano.
Yeah.
Then that actually speaks more to my worldview of human beings being deeply problematic than to his actual intentions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because for the most part, when someone wants to play the piano, at least when I sit down in St. Pancras to play the piano, I'm not thinking, oh, this is me showing off. Partly because I don't think I'm that good at the piano, partly because I just think it's a bit of fun. And I think as well, it works on this muscle of putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a muscle that the more you work it in different domains, the more general purpose it becomes. So, for example, when you become okay with putting your hand up and asking a question in class, that actually helps that works your sort of confidence level up, which then makes you okay to give a presentation, which then makes you okay to play piano in public, which then makes you okay to sing in public, which then makes you okay to make a video. And all of this kind of builds on each other. So I treat it as almost an exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. So what's been your sort of gradient or your journey? Because I think back in school, I think a lot of people would be surprised looking at the way you put yourself out there now, if they saw you back in school. I think you were a lot more like reserved in school, right?
Yeah, I was a massive nerd in school. I think I started putting myself out there. Like in school, I always had this idea that, oh, it would be really nice if I could, for example, play piano in assembly. I was just never good enough. And I tried, auditioning with the Star Wars theme tune. And Mr. Wright, the music teacher, said, perhaps try again next year once you've done a bit more practice.
More like Mr. Wrong, am I right?
Very good, very good. So that was my first attempt at this. And then I would often fantasize about, oh, it'd be really cool to give an assembly about, something that I'm interested in. At one point, I got super into the Penn and Teller magic show. And I was like, planning this amazing assembly I could give. And I liked the idea of doing that. But I think it was only when I started doing close-up magic that I started to actually work on this confidence muscle. And it started off very much as an exercise in building confidence. Because as I tell all my students on the interview courses, when post GCSEs, my mum and I had our meeting with the headmaster, and he asked why I wanted to do medicine, and he said that, and after having a bit of a chat about this, he said that he's going to give me some honest feedback, and that while I had the grades and everything, he said I was coming across as a bit of a robot, and I wasn't showing any enthusiasm, and that was something I needed to work on. So I kind of took that to heart, and I think that fed into this whole kind of wanting to show off with this whole magic thing, which sort of came from a problematic place. Ooh. I can see you squirming right now, but I think the fact that I was able to do that meant that muscle grew, and then throughout university, I sort of started putting myself out there a bit more and more.
So the magic was sort of the gateway drug into all this stuff now.
Yeah, the magic was the gateway drug into attention seeking for the most part.
Oh, okay. So I think that's interesting. So at what point do you think so a lot of people would look at someone who vlogs themselves as being like attention seeking.
Yes.
At what point, hopefully you're not doing it for attention seeking anymore. So at what point did your putting yourself out there switch from attention seeking to value creating?
I think it was in 2016, in January 2016, when I first read Austin Kleon's Show Your Work, because I'd been toying, as I say in this blog post, with the idea of setting up a personal blog, but I could never previously get over this idea. I would be a pompous twit for having the audacity to have a personal blog.
Yeah.
And then when I read this book, the main thing that resonated with me was about how, even if what you have to say is going to be useful to at least one person in the world, then that is a strong indication for putting it out there. And that was like a mind-blowing moment for me. And then I started writing this blog. And like you said, the first bit of putting yourself out there is always the hardest. And it sort of went from there.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think part of the reason why the first bit is the hardest. So for example, actually, if someone sort of looks at what you're up to now, you've got a bunch of YouTube subscribers, you have all these fans and stuff. I think even... Sorry?
Thank you.
Ali asked me to say that.
Yeah, I'll send you a check later.
Even I think if someone who knows you saw you doing this now, they would think, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that's pretty sick. Look what he's up to. But if someone who knew you saw you right at the start when you had basically no subscribers, I still remember this. This was a couple of years ago. You're making these like vlogs. I think a lot among people who knew you, the reaction would have been a lot more negative. They would have probably thought, what's he doing? He's like trying to be attention seeking or something. Whereas now that it's more of a public thing, people see it in a completely different light. They don't see you as trying to be attention seeking. For some reason, the perception changes once you reach some level of scale. And I think that's why the first few things are the hardest, because it's like, oh, who is this dude in my class? Why does he think he can start a YouTube channel? This guy, really?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And it was partly because of that fear that I didn't post any of my vlogs on Facebook, because Facebook was where everyone knew me. So
yeah.
I didn't post anything on Facebook until like the final day of elective, where I was like, hey guys, I've been making these vlogs about my elective. Because I think vlogging your elective is like, oh, I made a video about this holiday I went on. It's sort of more acceptable. I just, prior to that, had sent out the videos to friends and family in WhatsApp groups and things, keeping it very, very sort of close to the chest, as it were.
Okay, I want to explore. So
yeah.
Actually, if you hadn't gone on elective, do you think you would have still started vlogging? If it was just the start of sixth year, final year, whatever, you didn't have this elective thing to kind of be an excuse to make like videos about your life, I guess. Do you think you would have done it?
I probably would have done, because vlogging life as a, quote, final year medical student at Cambridge University is in some way valuable to society, because it lets people who want to become medical students at Cambridge University, at the very least, see this is what life is like. And actually, there were the examples of the other Cambridge vloggers, people like Jake Wright, people like Ibsmo, famously, who made this a very acceptable thing. And no one was really doing it in medicine. I had a friend actually in my year who was sort of doing it in medicine, as I discovered a bit later on. And she was also a reason to do it, because I saw that people had been doing it and it was a good thing. So I never quite had to deal with that. I'm just a random person putting my life on the internet thinking it has value, because I sort of knew it had some value.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So now you've still got the medical brand thing, but you're also doing other things like tech reviews and just random lifestyle stuff. If you didn't have the Cambridge medical student excuse, basically, I'm asking like, yeah, how ballsy do you think you would have been? Like, would you have done this with absolutely no plausible excuse of like, oh, I'm doing this to like provide value in this particular way?
Ooh.
If it was purely like a personality thing, my name's Ali, I think, I think my life itself is just valuable and I want to share it with the world.
I don't think
we would have done that?
I don't think I would have done that. And I also wouldn't advise other people to do that. What I would have done is made videos about the BMAT and about interviews. So deliberately educational videos where I'm sitting in front of a camera and talking about topics that I'm very, very, very familiar with, and just being able to share them with a wider audience rather than people who just sign up to my classroom courses. I would have done that. And then from then, once I had some traction, the idea was I would have then felt okay about vlogging about my life, because this is, I think, the main strategy that new YouTubers should follow. You create educational content, and then people are going to start caring about what you're doing when you brush your teeth. Whereas just starting a vlog on its own is completely pointless.
Yeah.
I don't think would have had value to even one person, unless you can make it entertaining or you can make it inspiring, which I don't think I would have been able to do at the start.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I want to come back to your point about how having some level of success lends legitimacy to your thing. You know how you said at the start, people who knew me would have been like, oh, what the hell is this guy doing? And then now people are like, oh, that's really cool. When can I be in your video?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was in the first few weeks of final year when I was going all in on this vlogging thing, and I bought the Sony a6500 with a microphone input, and I was literally carrying this vlogging rig to lectures. And that was kind of post-elective, the first time when my year group were seeing this camera coming out. And by that time, a few of them knew, like actually, I think quite a lot of people knew, at least the ones who, had my Facebook feed come up, that I was doing this thing on elective, and it was, okay, cool, whatevs. But there was quite a lot of negative comments around it. They were like, oh, Ali, just put the camera away. Ali, what are you doing? I think it was more from the people that I knew well enough, but I wasn't like super, super close to, who felt that, plausibly could have been banterous. A random stranger in my year wouldn't have said that, because that's just rude. And my closest friends wouldn't have really said that, because, they know I don't care. But the people in the periphery, in that middle zone, were quite negative about it. Oh, Ali, have you got consent from everyone in this lecture theatre? Stuff like that. The classic comments.
Do you think the strangers would have been thinking it or not?
Probably. I hesitate to say yes, because obviously we all think that people think about us a lot more than they actually do. Like I doubt people would have cared. But like, in undergrad, we had a girl who would walk into our lectures late with like the Cambridge Uni lacrosse stash with her lacrosse stick on the thing, and I'd be thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. But I imagine there would have been a few people, because it would have caught everyone's attention, and I imagine there would have been at least some people think, wow, what a twat for carrying your lacrosse stick and coming to lectures late. I imagine some people would have thought that, rather than just, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I think there was some segment of the population that would have disliked me for doing so. And actually, on a recent episode of the Stallman podcast, which is like a niche tech camera videography podcast, he was talking about vlogging in airports. And the way he became okay with it was by just accepting that some people are going to dislike you for doing it. And that's fine. And as soon as you become okay with the idea that some people will dislike you, then it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened with me at the start of final year, when I started vlogging in quote public to people in my year who knew me.
Yeah.
I was okay with these handful of people being like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
Because I knew that what I was doing was actually pretty legit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So like the vlogging in lectures was you said you didn't want to post stuff on Facebook because you were worried about what people would think. Is that accurate?
Probably. I don't know. I think by this point in my life, I'd stopped really caring what other people thought. I was quite happy. I was quite okay with being with being weird. And I was completely okay with being thought foolish.
Right.
And as I have been for the last several years of my life. So it wasn't that. It was more like, I don't want this to be like an annoyance to people. I don't want to post on Facebook every time I do a new vlog. I want to have like, a library of content. And I sort of knew that if I post, after 20 videos on Facebook, that will increase my subscribers a little bit more than if I'd uploaded my first episode.
Yeah, sure.
But this is getting really deep into the trenches. Yeah. I kind of want to explore why do you think this is such a struggle for people?
Yeah. Why is society this way? I'm sure it's very much a cultural thing. So, for example, I think like in the UK, there's very much a culture of anti-self-promotion. I think in general, the things that are valued are being like understated and sort of, more like reserved and not putting yourself out there. And it's almost looked down upon to make a big deal out of anything, actually.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, the British humility and all that stuff.
I think it's uptightness. I think humility makes it sound like a positive thing.
Yeah.
I think it's actually uptightness in large part.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. But then, for example, if someone sees Stephen Fry on a TV show, they're not thinking, what a pompous twit.
Yeah.
At least not in that domain. However, if someone sees someone, I think the key thing is when it's someone you know, and when you know that this is a new thing that they're doing, it encourages you to think, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and that's such a bad reaction because, like, yeah, actually, if you see someone you know changing in any like perceptible way, everyone's very suspicious of it. It's like that's not him. What's he trying to do? And I think people kind of look at each other being like their friends and their sort of acquaintances and stuff, as having these like fixed identities. And if someone is trying to break out of their fixed identity in any way, yeah, people are suspicious of it and they see it in a negative way rather than being like, oh, he's trying to like expand himself in this area or like improve himself in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why so many people reinvent themselves when they start a new chapter, like moving school in order to escape something, or when they go to university, they're like, you know what, now I'm going to be that confident guy. Because you can't really make that kind of transformation in school around people who already know you. Yeah. It's just not a thing.
Yeah, maybe it's the school thing. I feel like, okay, imagine the same scenario in like the adult world. Like you have, I don't know, you're working at the hospital or something, and people kind of, let's say you were kind of like you were in school. People think, oh, he's a bit of a nerd, a bit of an introvert, and then you decide to like stop playing guitar at open mics or something. I think you'd be less reserved about that, right? Because everyone's an adult and everyone's kind of mature about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think as an adult, people are more supportive of weirdness and more actively accepting of it. Yeah. Whereas the sort of environment in school was very much, what's that song in High School Musical? Have you seen High School Musical 1?
Long time ago.
Where it's like Zac Efron wants to break out and do singing. And then
We're Breaking Free?
No, it's not We're Breaking Free. It's like everyone in the basketball team is telling him to like stay the course and just be a jock. And then, they're in the school cafe and this one girl is like, but I like sewing. And then her maths nerd table is like, no, you must do maths.
Oh, that's really profound.
And the whole song is about kind of like stick to the status quo.
Yes.
Stick to the status quo.
Oh, is that a song?
Yeah.
That's genius.
Yeah, that's like super like...
That's a really good movie. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I feel like a lot of it is school baggage that everyone's just still dealing with. I think school baggage in general is a really interesting thing. I think to some extent, for the rest of everyone's lives, a lot of the things we do are because we're trying to grapple with school baggage,
Baggage, yeah. But I think that'll be its own separate podcast at some point. On the note of school baggage, I've had a few messages from people who are in their final years of school saying, hey, I've been thinking of starting a blog about, law because I want to do law, or about medicine or whatever. But I'm really worried about what my classmates will think, firstly. And secondly, I'm not sure what to name it because I don't want to use my name on the internet.
Ooh.
So what are your thoughts on the... I'm worried about what my classmates will think if I start a blog about medicine.
Okay, so I think there's a real mismatch between what your classmates will actually think and what you think they'll think here. So, for example, one thing I've noticed is that I think at least like at our age and stuff, and certainly with the kind of people I know, I think people do compare themselves to one another a lot. And so, for example, I was catching up with a friend. This is, I guess, like a techie kind of friend interested in startups and things. And he'd heard that one of our other like techie friends, was trying to like start something and got like some interview for Y Combinator, this thing. He'd heard about this. And his reaction was like an immediate reaction of comparison. His reaction was immediately, oh, wow, at least someone's doing something with their lives. So he sort of sees himself as just doing the normal thing, having like a good job and stuff. But he's not like doing a startup or whatever. And so his immediate reaction was to compare this other person to him. And I think if people see others in their peer group doing something like starting a blog or starting a YouTube channel, there might be a little bit of like, oh, who does this person think they are? But I think there's also a lot of like, oh man, this person's doing something. What am I doing? Where's my blog?
I'm scrolling Instagram in my spare time. And
So I think often in our heads, it seems like the reaction is almost all of who does this person think they are? But I think to a large extent, the reaction is also like, oh, damn, other people are doing stuff. Like, what am I doing?
So one question that I like, if I'm having a face-to-face conversation with someone about this and they're expressing something like, oh, I'm worried about what my classmates are going to think about anything. A question I always ask is, okay, imagine if one of your classmates was starting their blog, how would you feel about it? And the response is, oh, I mean, it's cool. I wouldn't really care. Good. So why do you think everyone else is thinking differently about you? Like, why are you thinking so like lowly of everyone else that you think they're not going to have your exact views right now?
Yeah, that's spot on, actually. Well, okay, it depends. I think look, I'm all about being charitable.
Sure.
If there's anything about my brand these days, it's that I think being charitable about other people's intentions is good. But in school, people are mean, man. Kids are mean. I can very easily, like our school. Okay, so we went to like a boys' grammar school. It was like a good school by all standards, but people were still mean. Like if someone was trying to put themselves out there, I imagine other people would actually think bad of them. Come on.
I don't know. I really can't think of any examples. Like the closest example I can think of is our friend Duranko, who's an absolutely incredible singer. And he would occasionally kind of burst into song when he was doing assemblies because he was just confident and okay with being a bit weird. And our whole year like massively encouraged it. I think almost to the level of bullying where they'd kind of be like, Duranko, sing.
Wait, what age was this though? Because
this was sort of...
this was sixth form,
this was GCSE and sixth form, yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad, yeah.
I think earlier on, maybe people would have been like... I suppose in the lower school, year 7 to 10, being clever was looked down upon. And I think around about year 10, that kind of switched.
Yeah, I think that there was a real turning point in like maturity from everyone around sort of GCSE time. And everyone sort of became more sort of on each other's side rather than, warring factions and that kind of thing.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I think school definitely plays a part in it.
How do we get onto this? Oh, people worried about what their classmates are going to think. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was point number 1. Point number 2 is fear of using a full name online.
Okay. So I think this one depends on like the online subcultures that you frequent. So like in tech, for example, it's very normal and very encouraged and definitely a good thing to, for example, be active on Twitter or have like a personal website, i.e. with your name on it and a bunch of things you did, so that if someone comes across you online, they can immediately see, oh, what's this person like? What have they been up to? So in tech, certainly it's very acceptable. What's it like in medicine?
In medicine, it's different. So I've spoken to a few people about this because I was curious. I think it's good to be active on Twitter. A lot of research and stuff is shared on Twitter. A lot of the conversations between different specialties, you follow people on Twitter and you get to meet people across the world, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. Having a personal website, though, I think is still looked down upon. It's the impression I get is that it's more the realm of people putting themselves out there for private practice. And, okay, he's doing private practice. Oh, I see.
Oh, like selling out.
Yeah, in a way, selling out. Partly, I think that comes from jealousy from everyone else. They're like, oh, wow, he's got his private practice. Partly, I think within medicine, there is still this culture of you should stick to the status quo and any sort of putting yourself out there, unless it's already in line with what everyone believes is a bit more unacceptable. I don't know how this actually translates in real life because all these conversations will be happening amongst consultants and people who would have a personal website. You don't get many juniors having their own personal websites because, most people in medicine don't do stuff outside of medicine once the career starts to take hold of them. But, yeah, it's not quite as welcoming as tech for having a personal brand.
Is it a generational thing? Because, like, I'm guessing the gatekeepers in medicine are middle-aged dudes, probably. Actually, the gender balance is maybe a bit more balanced in medicine. The middle-aged people in general. Whereas in tech, maybe it's a bit younger and, like, personal websites and stuff are all very techy. But, like, thinking about people who are maybe 12 or 13 years old now, where, like, they're definitely on Instagram, they're definitely on, like, TikTok, and I don't that one stuff I don't know about. But like they're very much
TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. They've very much like grown up with this stuff. They've pretty much grown up putting themselves out there in some way, shape, or form. And I don't think it'll be weird for them to do it.
I don't know. I think someone, even someone who has grown up with this sort of stuff, would still find it weird to make their first name, last name.com and start writing on a website. It's very different to do it on Instagram where you've got your handle and you've got your fake account and you've got, what's it called? Like Finstagram? No.
Finsta, yeah.
Financial Insta.
Financial Insta.
Yeah. I think that's very different to starting a blog where you're putting. Oh, but I don't know. Is blogging still a thing?
Yeah, I don't know if the kids are blogging.
I don't think. Yeah,
a lot of people in tech are like heralding the comeback of the personal blog, and everyone's saying like, yeah, 2019 is going to be the year of the the personal blog again.
That's like vlog with a B.
yeah, exactly. To all you under 15s.
How do we get onto this? Yes, firstname.lastname.com, having a personal brand, putting yourself out there. I think a lot of the fear of that also comes from the sort of socialization from parents. Like, for example, if I'd told our mum that I was going to make my aliabdal.com a few years ago before like it was more acceptable, it would have been like that's unsafe. Is it safe to put yourself on the internet?
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. But I think we're definitely past that now. Like even like parents whose kids are young nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know if they care about it. But the question is still there of like, why have we ended up this way as a society where people are like scared to do it? Actually, today when we were walking around that random French town, what was it, Angers or something?
Yeah.
I saw like this kid trying to learn how to skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
There was a few kids standing around. This kid was trying to learn how to skateboard, and I watched him, and like he'd only started very recently, I think, but he was still doing it. And I think skateboarding is super interesting, and that actually got me thinking because at various points in my sort of teenage years, I always thought skateboarding was cool. And like, I don't know, we had a skateboard. We got like skateboards as presents. So we had a couple of skateboards lying around. And inevitably, like every summer I would think, oh man, okay, this is the summer that I'm going to like learn skateboarding. And I'd go outside, like into our cul-de-sac, where we didn't really know anyone. We kind of knew the neighbors and stuff. There were people around. They could have seen it. And I'd feel like super self-conscious about
trying an ollie. Or something.
Yeah, trying to learn how to do an ollie, which is like the most basic skateboard trick. It's when you basically sort of jump in the air with the skateboard sort of attached to your feet. I'd be like super self-conscious about trying to do this thing. And on multiple occasions, I'd go outside, do it for about 5 minutes, and then just go back inside because I was too embarrassed. And almost certainly, no one was watching. I guarantee no one was watching this.
Yeah, and if they were watching, they wouldn't have cared. They were like, oh, it's a cute little 11-year-old like skateboarding. Exactly. Whereas at the time, you were thinking, oh my God, this is such a big deal.
This is ridiculous. How can I do this? And so when I saw this guy skateboarding, I thought, man, that's really profound. Good on this guy. I know that's not easy to do. Multiple times I've tried to do that and decided not to do it.
Yeah. All right, so let's start wrapping this up. So our question, in a way, was, why is it so hard? Why do people find it hard to put themselves out there? Why do we find it hard to put ourselves out there? And I suppose the answers are because we're worried about what other people are going to think. We're worried that what we have to say doesn't actually have any value. And, a lot of this school baggage of, people are going to judge me for doing this.
Yeah.
And then in terms of solutions, so the reason I became okay with it was because of this thing about being adding value, but also, being completely okay with being thought foolish. Like, now I would be more happy than before to whip out a camera and vlog in public, even though the fear is still there. I think that's probably the most scared I would be of putting myself out there by like actively vlogging in public. I don't know if you've got any equivalent.
Vlogging in public?
Yeah.
I definitely feel embarrassed vlogging in public.
Yeah.
I don't think I do anything like that. But I think a solid reason is also because I think we're socialized to sort of view people they view other human beings as like having value dependent on the things they do or the things they can do. And I think like if you have this sort of comparison view of people, then if you think, if you see the guy playing piano at St. Pancras and you think he's showing off, that's because you see the world in a slightly warped way where people's values are according to these things. I think that's actually a lot. I'd say that's maybe like half of it. And then the other half is like caring what people think. Or actually, I guess the caring what people think comes from believing everyone has that sort of worldview. It all comes from that worldview.
That worldview that... hang on, I don't understand how you get from playing piano to people's values dependent on what they're able to do.
Okay. So for example, let's say singing, because I think that's a bit more personal.
Singing is very personal. Yeah.
If someone is like singing somewhere, let's say singing in the streets, no one's asked them to do this. Let's say they're not even busking. They don't need the money. They're just singing in the streets. Now, I think there's two things you could think. There's one thing you can think is, this is my fellow man, woman, this is my fellow human being sharing a part of themselves with the rest of society. And this is like, this is nice. They're sharing a part of themselves. They're being part of this general thing that we're all doing.
The human condition.
The human condition. They're being part of the human condition. There's some creativity in there too. Maybe there's some happiness.
Very good.
The other thing you could think is like, yeah, the much more negative kind of thing of like, this person thinks they're good at singing. This person thinks that other people care about how good they are at singing. And yeah, ascribing some kind of negative intention to like, this person wants to show off and like increase his value in other people's eyes, you know? Okay. And I think like people think in general that everyone has the second point of view. And there's no, do you get what I'm saying? Is that making sense?
I get what you're saying. So we think that other people have more of a point of view where they feel like we would be showing off, whereas we would see someone singing and think, "Oh, that's cool."
Oh no, I think a lot of people would see it as some kind of showing off thing.
Okay.
And so they think the person's trying to show off, and then they're like, actually, I don't know. It depends who the person is. It depends whether you know the person. That's like the crucial thing. If you don't know the person and they're singing in the street, you're like, oh, cool. If you know the person
and they're singing in the street,
I think a lot of people would think they're trying to show off.
Yeah, I think you're still dealing with a lot of school baggage here. So for example, I've been busking in Cambridge, and I have had people who I know come past me and kind of be and like think, oh, and be like, oh, that's amazing, incredible. And a few messaged me on Facebook afterwards, being like, hey, I saw you singing. Didn't want to interrupt you, but it's really awesome that you're doing that. I think by the time you get to university level, that's less of a thing. But then again, it depends on the people, because essentially that's equivalent to vlogging in lectures and people being unhappy about that. I don't know.
Do you get what I'm trying to get at with the worldview thing, though? That like, if your mind, if the thought even crosses your mind that this person is trying to show off, like, why does that happen? There's no reason that should happen. Why does it? Why do we have a bias towards that?
Oh, and you're saying that ergo people's view is that the value of another human being is based on what they can do, and therefore someone is trying to inflate their own value by showing off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that far-fetched?
I'm still not quite convinced of how this logic works, but we can visit it another time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, have a think about it
more clearly.
We'll talk about it at some other point. So, yeah, that's this second episode wrapped up. We have talked a little bit about why it's hard to put yourselves out there. The two of us are now putting ourselves out there with this podcast. This is more new for you than it is for me. Yeah. And I don't think you have any qualms about it. Have you got any qualms about it?
I don't really care at this point. I think I've just like internalized the whole "it doesn't matter" thing too much now. I don't really care.
Yeah, and even if people don't like it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think anyone's going to be like, "Oh, these guys starting a podcast. What a bunch of twits."
Yeah.
I honestly don't.
Yeah, I don't think anyone I know would actually do that.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of the fear of this comes from maybe not having experience of it. And once you have a bit of experience of putting yourself out there, you realize actually no one is thinking about you. No one cares. Yeah. Ascribing good intentions to humanity, as it were. Cool.
All right.
Let's leave it there. Have a good week. Have a good week, and we'll see you in the next episode.
All right, that's it. Thanks a lot for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show.
And please, if you enjoyed the show, please could you leave a comment, rating, review, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. So I think Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever. It really, really helps, especially with a brand new podcast. The more ratings and reviews it gets within the first however many days of its launch, the better the podcast does overall. So yeah, I would really, really appreciate it if you could please leave a rating. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next episode. Okay, how do we think that went?
I don't know. I feel like I had a profound point that wasn't coming across.
I feel, I really didn't understand how you went from how you arrived at this thing of, I think the deeply problematic version of this is that we ascribe value to human beings based on what they can bring to the table.
Okay, so the reason people care about what other people, the reason people are worried about what other people will think is because they think other people will think they're showing off, right?
They think other people will think they're showing off. Yes, 100%.
People don't want to come across as showing off.
Yeah, people don't want to be a show-off.
And the only reason they think other people would think they're showing off is if they have this problematic worldview where value comes from ability and achievements and all this kind of stuff. And then they see this act of putting yourself out there as an act of showcasing your achievements or abilities i.e. your value. It's an act of showcasing your value rather than like sharing yourself with society.
Okay. So when I am busking in public, the reason I'm doing it is because I want to showcase my value to that segment of the population that, hey, I'm good at singing.
I mean, I hope not. But if you were worried that people would think you're a show-off,
Yeah.
it would be probably because you hold a problematic worldview that people even think in that way. That like,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that makes perfect sense.
yes,
So like when I'm busking now, it doesn't even cross my mind that people are going to think I'm a show off, because I guess in a way my worldview is not that people's human beings are. Although I feel like your ultimate thing is close to my worldview, but I just don't worry about it as a thing. I think this all ultimately comes down to the fear of being thought foolish. As in, for example, if someone is good at singing, they would be happy to sing in their school talent show.
Yeah.
If someone is not good at singing or thinks they're not good at singing, I would be far less happy to sing in their school talent show.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. But look, the thing is, for example, if someone is... A talent show is like an excuse, you know? If someone is singing and just putting the videos of themselves singing on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
I do think a large portion of the population would think, if they knew the person, they think, why are they doing this? And like, if you ask the person, why are you doing this? It's hard to articulate. I think if they haven't been, I mean, if they're not familiar with the language we've been speaking right now, they wouldn't think to say something like, oh, you know, maybe someone in the world will find it valuable, and that's all I care about.
Yeah, I think that's a profound insight that you wouldn't get to from first principles unless you really, really, really thought about it.
Yeah, so I think like people would feel the urge, like, oh yeah, I like singing. I feel like I'm okay at singing. I want to put myself out there. But if you ask them, I don't know if they'd be able to articulate a valid reason why that's an okay thing for them to do.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're like, oh, I just kind of like doing it. And the problem is, like, I've often tried having this conversation with people who I don't know very well, and it's hard to get people to engage with this level of overthinking this particular thing. They're like, oh, you know, I just
Yeah.
what's wrong with wanting to do it? Equally,
Yeah.
when I've got friends who do not want to be on camera, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let's explore why you don't want to be on camera. They're not comfortable with even going down that road. I think that they realize that it's problematic and that it's them having the fear of looking foolish. I think this is a thing in the back of their minds that they don't want to engage with that.
I had this like a couple of months ago. I was with some friends in Mexico. I had a great idea for a viral video challenge that was going to take the internet by storm.
Oh, yeah.
And my friend didn't want to be in the video. He said he was happy to film. He didn't want to be in it. Like 4 of us had an hour-long discussion about this in the pool. And the guy just refused to engage pretty much.
Oh,
He just completely shut off.
interesting. So this sort of happens with my housemate, who you know, where she would be okay with being in certain types of videos, but again, there's a very strong component of sort of curating the image. For example, Ali, you aren't allowed to post any videos of me that haven't got me with makeup on, or you aren't allowed to post any videos that showcase the fact I have some kind of disability. You know, things like that.
Oh.
Whereas when I think she's more open to engaging on this topic, and I've kind of slowly the war of attrition over time to realize that actually you're quite an inspiring individual. You're doing medicine against all the odds, blah, blah, blah. You can provide a lot more value to the world by being more
Public.
Yeah. But she still has this like huge. This is why we need like a third party, because you and I can go back and forth about this all day.
Yeah.
I'll get her thoughts when I next see her.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Cool. Right. Let's actually stop recording now.
Okay.